Okay, let's now move into the project lifecycle. So the generic project management lifecycle consists of four main phases or stages. So they are the concept phase or project initiation, the development phase or detailed planning, the implementation or execution phase, and then project closure or finalization. So they're common terms that may be used. Your organization may not use those specific terms, but I'd be surprised if it doesn't have a 4 or 5 stage life cycle that fairly well matches what this says. Let's go through each of these individually and see what's contained within them. So the first phase is the concept phase. The concept phase actually happens before the project becomes a real project. So the concept phase, often the business or the project sponsor, before they've actually decided to go ahead with the project, will actually go through the concept phase and identify what the needs are. So all projects are generally established because we need to improve something. There is a problem that needs fixing. There is something that needs to be done because of a particular need. So it's very important that the project is, or that we actually record what the needs are. What is the problem that we're trying to address or fix? The next part of the concept phase is developing up the proposal. So the proposal essentially is a document that goes through and documents all of the background of the project, the scope of the project, what it's trying to achieve, and it develops up that proposal. Now, as part of that proposal, you may well have an options analysis where you actually look at the potential solutions to that problem, and there may be multiple potential solutions or options. So as part of developing up that proposal, you do the options analysis and then determine what is the most appropriate solution for this particular project. Once you've chosen that solution, that then is fed into the third part of this particular phase and developing up the business case. So you put a little bit more work in and you put some detail around how you're going to deliver that chosen solution and what it is going to cost, roughly how long it is going to take. Now, they're only indicative costs and times at this stage because this is very early days and we may not have the technical resources involved at this stage. So it's fairly early on. So high level estimates of time and cost essentially are put into the business case. This is also where you need to estimate what benefits the organization are going to achieve, because the business case document essentially identifies the cost benefit analysis. So it works through how much it is going to cost to deliver the project, how much it is going to cost to then utilize the thing that the project is developing, and compare all of those costs against the benefits that the organization are likely to achieve. So that is the cost versus benefit analysis. And that is done to determine whether it is really worthwhile for this project to move into the next stage or phase, or whether it should actually be canned at this point, sent back to the drawing board, or other considerations being made. So that is the concept phase. The end of the concept phase tends to be a milestone, which is a decision about whether the project proceeds or not, a yes or a no. If it is yes, it moves into the development phase. It may not be an immediate change from the concept to development. Many projects will get a yes in the concept phase, but then will sit on the shelf until there are resources available, like the project manager, to then take on and develop up that proposal into a full-fledged project plan. So it may not be immediate, but essentially once the development stage starts, that's where we go into detailed planning. There are a number of steps within this. So first one is project administration, setting up the project team in the first place, getting the people on board, getting them an office, making sure that they have the resources to work, and then going through and developing up the project management plan, a fully developed plan of how we are going to implement the rest of this project. Okay, so the project plan is a very important element of project management and the most important artifact that actually comes out of the development phase. Now, a lot of projects actually have a principal contractor or a key contractor that will be implementing the project. If that is the case, then contract formation may actually be done toward the end of the development phase. So, but if you're not doing that and you're managing the project yourself, then contracts may actually be formed later on in the life cycle, and it may not be at this particular stage. But large contractors are doing large parts of the implementation work. Normally, you're reliant on their bids or their particular tenders to come up with the detailed costings associated with your particular project before you can really authorize the project to go past the development phase. Now, when we've got a project plan that we're happy with, we get the team together and we conduct a pre-implementation review. So that is everybody sitting in a room, having read the project management plan and discussing, have we actually got everything in place? Are we ready to move forward? Is this project worthwhile? Now, the sponsor, the project sponsor or the program manager tends to be in this meeting because they're the ones that will authorize the project to move beyond the development phase. The things that they're looking for when they look at the project plan, they're going to ask themselves, is this plan workable? Am I confident that by following this plan, we will achieve the project objective and be able to deliver to the client or the users? They will then ask themselves, if that is yes, then how is the business case now? So they will revisit the business case at this stage, putting in the new costings, the new timeframes, and a better understanding of what benefits will be achieved, and going through the cost-benefit analysis again. Okay, and if it passes both of those tests, then at the end of the pre-implementation review, then the project will move into the implementation phase. Once again, the whole point is a yes or no decision. No moves back into development or gets shelved or may get canned altogether. And it would often be the case if there is not a cost benefit there to actually deliver this project. But if there is, and we have the capacity to be able to run the project, then we get the yes decision and move into implementation. Now, the implementation essentially is the working phase. This is where we actually go through and start producing each of the deliverables that we said that we would produce. But while that is happening, the project management team actually go through and continually manage the plan. So they need to monitor and control the plan, go and do continuous improvement. With each day that we turn up to the project, we understand more about the project. Therefore, we can feed that information back into the project management plan and improve it to get better, more efficient and effective outcomes as a result of delivering this particular project. So that is plan management. So, and it is done at the same time that the technical resources are producing the project deliverables. Now, along the way, we also conduct tests and commissioning along with our quality plan. Okay, so it is very important that quality is being tested along the way and that it is each of the deliverables are actually commissioned and delivered to the users. Now, when we have actually produced all of the deliverables, we've conducted all the tests, we have commissioned each of the deliverables, then we can move into finalization. Finalization is where the client has taken, or the users have taken, the deliverables and they've accepted them. So general acceptance anyway. They may be moving through doing their own tests and inspections and user evaluations and things like that. They may well come back with some warranty work for the project team to do, but essentially we have general acceptance because they've said that they will take them on. And whilst that is happening, we start closing down the project. So project closeout may be some physical work that we need to do. We may need to reconstitute the site. We may need to return some of the materials or refurbish some of the equipment or the facilities that we've been using. So project closeout is very important, and we've got to make sure that it is done well. The last part of project finalization is the review and evaluation. Normally, a project completion document is produced as part of this. We go through and we review all of the things that we've done as part of this project, and we, in the report, we actually evaluate what was done, what could have been improved, and what lessons did we learn. Now, I want to make fairly clear here that we do not learn our lessons during finalization. Lessons are actually learned all the way through the project. And as we learn the lessons, we incorporate continuous improvement. We improve what we're doing for the next part of the project. And when we get to finalization and we're doing the review and evaluation, that's where we evaluate each of the improvements that we've made, and we identified what lessons we learned during the project, and we make recommendations on how the organization can best incorporate those lessons into future projects or other projects that are being implemented now. So lessons learned are done all the way through, not just at the end. So they are the 4 phases of the project lifecycle. Now, I mentioned before, your organization may have other phases or use other terms. That is fine. There's no real problems with that. What I want you to do now is just consider the projects that you've worked in before. Which phases have you been involved with? Were you part of the concept phase in developing up the need or the idea or determining what the faults or the problems were? Was it in the development phase and planning out and providing advice or assisting people to actually plan out what needs to be done on the project? Were you actually following the plan and implementing, developing up some technical work? Or were you assisting the project manager in actually monitoring and controlling the project? Or was it during finalization and you were actually utilized to actually come up with what you thought happened within the project, or what went well and what didn't go well? Which elements or which phases of the project lifecycle have you been involved with? Note those down. When we come back in the webinar, we'll actually talk through some of your experiences and how it happens within your organizations. What I want to do now, we'll finish up today by actually going through the project management knowledge areas. There are 10 project management knowledge areas or subject areas, and in some cases, competency units of competency for the National Competency Standards for Project Management. So these are the 10. Okay, I'll go through them all individually. The first one being scope management. So scope management is fairly obvious. Scope is about all of the things that we are and we are not doing as part of this project. So it's setting the boundary of what is part of the project and what is not part of the project. So that'll help us to actually maintain our focus and actually deliver all the things that are required to achieve the project. Time management comes from the scope, essentially. So the last part of the scope is all of the work required to achieve the scope. Time management is about taking each of those pieces of work and then putting time frames. The start point, the end point, how long it'll take, the relationships between each of those pieces of work, and then coming up with a plan of how we'll deal with that, what the relationships are and the best way of dealing with each of that work, and then moving them through as we move through the life cycle and making sure that they are that is managed and controlled. Cost management, very similar to time management, takes each of the work from the scope elements and actually puts costings against each of those pieces of work. That allows us to then be able to monitor and control the cost associated with each of the bits of the work in order to achieve the overall cost targets of the project or budget. Quality management. Quality is very important. They are the specifications around each of the deliverables. It's each of the things in this project that need to be fit for purpose for the stakeholders. So quality management is very important for us to deal with. It also covers continual improvement. So quality is us being able to achieve the work efficiently and deliver things to the stakeholders and the users that are fit for purpose. Risk management. Now, before going into risk management, I should highlight that scope, time, cost, and quality are on that the red diamond. They are often considered to be the core knowledge areas or the primary knowledge areas. Now, they're often called that essentially because, remember when we spoke about project management success? The measures of project management success often are scope, time, cost, and quality because they are measurable. We can actually measure them at the end of the project and tell whether we achieved them or not. Where the other 6 knowledge areas aren't as easily measured. So these 4 are often considered the primary knowledge areas essentially because they will signify or be used as the measurement elements for project management success. But it doesn't, or it shouldn't, degrade the importance of each of the others, like risk management. Risk management is the management of uncertainty. So whether that is good things that could happen or bad things that could happen and impact on our project, that is risk management. It's about trying to forecast what might happen and putting in place mechanisms to best future-proof the project. Human resource management. Human resource management is the area that actually identifies the best resources to use on the project and then make sure that each of those resources have everything that they need in order to actually do good work and achieve the requirements of the project. So there are lots of elements that become part of HR that the project manager has responsibility for actually planning and then making sure they happen during the project life cycle. Contracts and procurement. Now, when we start a project, we don't usually have everything that we need. We have to procure it. So sometimes we can get that internally. Sometimes we need to buy it from suppliers. Sometimes we need to hire contractors to come in and do the work. So contracts and procurement is very important. When you're dealing with contracts and suppliers and external parties, we need to make sure that everything is done above board, that all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So contracts and procurement management is very important with regard to project management. Communications management. We've spoken before about the importance of communications to this particular qualification, and that is because communications is essential for successful projects. If you need people to do things, you've got to clearly explain to them what needs to be done. If you want something from somebody, you need to be able to communicate what it is that you need, when you need it, and how it needs to be delivered. So communications management is very important and also closely aligned to stakeholder management. Stakeholder management is the newest of the knowledge areas. It was only brought in a few years ago. Stakeholder management was often considered to be a part of communications, essentially because we manage stakeholders by communicating with them, essentially making sure that we get information, the right information from them, and that we engage with them and provide them with information along the way so that they can actually support the project in moving through and delivering the things that we need to deliver. And the last one is integration. Integration management is actually considered the project manager's function. And ultimately, that's recognised through the National Competency Standards for Project Management, because integration is a unit of competency within the diploma. It is not a unit of competency for the Certificate 4. So project team members are not responsible for integrating, the project manager is. So we integrate all of the other different elements. That is, we don't try to manage scope in isolation or time or cost or quality. We actually make sure that we manage all 9 of these different management elements cohesively. So that is the toing and froing, the manipulating how much we have of one in order to achieve others. We've got to make sure that we actually have enough of each of these elements and that we've combined and integrated them all into a holistic project management plan, a plan that achieves each of these other 9 management areas and can be delivered to successfully achieve the project objective. So integration is very important, a very important knowledge area, and that'll be covered later on in the program. Okay, so what I want you to think about with respect to these 10 knowledge areas, which of them have you been involved with or have your projects focused on? Are there a particular few that are formalized within your documentation or that are particularly followed by the project manager? And I suppose, are there any that are left out, that are ignored or haven't really been considered that formally? So make some notes with regard to that. And when we come back to the webinar, we'll actually get your thoughts and we'll have a discussion about those particular points. So now we've come to the end of Module 1, Project Management Overview. So I hope you've been able to take away some key points from this. The information that we provided you in this particular video should provide the underpinning knowledge to then be able to participate in the other videos and webinar series. So I look forward to seeing you again on future webinars and in video presentations. Thank you very much for your time.